3 bone-chilling secrets of the Appalachian Mountains that haunt you forever. The Appalachian Mountains are more than just a sweep of ancient hills and forests, they are a shroud of mystery, enveloped in whispers of the supernatural. Dark shadows loom over their peaks, where the wind carries secrets through the mist. Locals talk in hushed tones about strange happenings. Why do hikers disappear without a trace? What lurks in the valleys when the sun sinks below the horizon? One can almost feel the spine-tingling chill of the unknown gripping the heart, making it beat faster, louder. First, imagine a small town nestled in those rugged hills, a spot so quaint it looks like a postcard. Yet visitors who've wandered into the local diner leave with a strange look in their eyes. They mention whispers in the trees, a voice calling out their names deep in the woods. Some swear they saw a flickering light, far off, that led them off the path, only for them to turn around and find everything vanished. Friends and family exchanged worried glances, for this was no fairy tale. The forest holds stories that confound and terrify. Tension thicks like fog. The locals share tales of folk who shot off into the wilderness for a camping trip only to return completely changed. Blank stares and trembling hands tell it all. What happened in those woods? Was it the Wendigo, a creature said to pull you in with a tempting lull? Or was it something even darker, drawing out their deepest fears? It's as if the mountains are alive, preying on the souls of the curious. Just the thought sends shivers down your spine. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The atmosphere in the town shifts at night. It thickens, an electric charge making everyone too aware of their own heartbeats. In the middle of the night, a scream pierced the silence, sending ripples through the sleeping community. Families gathered, eyes wide in shock, voices trembling as they repeated the stories of those who vanished. No one could explain the sudden silence that followed the shriek, as if all sound had drawn back, holding its breath, a heavy, suffocating pause that mingled dread with curiosity. What had caused that terrible sound? The Appalachian Mountains don't just hold trees, they guard the very essence of fear. What secrets are buried beneath the undergrowth? Who, if anyone, could truly unravel the mystery, or would they too become part of the haunting folklore? Each tick of the clock drew closer to a chilling revelation, one that may just upend everything anyone thought they knew. What do these mountains really want from those who dare to wander their ways? The silence hung heavy, wrapping the town in a cocoon of dread. People whispered among themselves, the once cozy diner now a cauldron of fear. Cups rattled as nervous hands gripped them too tightly. In the flickering fluorescent light, eyes darted around nervously, and hushed conversations flared as each person debated what to do next. The chilling sound, the scream, had shaken their very foundation, leaving few untouched. What could have evoked such terror? A figure? An animal? Or something that lurked in shadows darker than the night? They decided to form a search party, driven by equal parts fear and curiosity. They gathered flashlights, jackets, and whatever made them feel safe, a pocket knife, a lucky charm, anything that might banish the gnawing fear creeping into their bones. As they assembled, a local elder named Miss Clara stepped forward. Her lined face held a profound seriousness that silenced the murmurs. "You best not wander too far," she warned, her voice steady. "The woods don't forget, and they don't always release what they take." The crowd shifted uneasily, a collective shiver passed through them. With a mix of trepidation and determination, they set forth into the unknown, the trees swallowing them whole as the last vestiges of light faded. The air was thick now, clinging to their skin and wrapping around their throats. Distant owls hooted mournfully, and the rustle of leaves seemed to whisper secrets no one dared to comprehend. Every step deeper brought a nagging sense of dread, as if unseen eyes were tracking their movements. They reached a clearing illuminated by their flashlights, revealing only blackness beyond it. Then, one of the younger men in the group, Jake, pointed ahead. "Look! What's that?" Up on a ridge, a flickering light glimmered like a lone star. It danced and twisted, pulling at their very souls. Without thinking, Jake took off, drawn to the light with an irresistible magnetism, the others instinctively following behind him, heartbeats pounding in harmony like a warped drum. "Wait!" Someone shouted, but the sound was lost in the wind. As they moved closer, shadows shifted more than the trees. The hairs on their arms stood on end. They reached the ridge, gasping for breath, and suddenly, the light vanished, snuffed out like a candle in the wind. "What the hell?" Jake gasped, panicking. "Where did it go?" An oppressive silence welcomed them, swallowing their words. Panic set in as they searched wildly, fear creeping into their chests like icy tendrils. They were trapped, lost in the very mountain that held its breath, waiting. With every breath, the tension grew. Time disintegrated, and suddenly, from the distance, they heard it, a low, haunting hum, rising and falling, as if the mountains themselves sang a dirge for those who entered. It was a sound that cradled the darkness, captivating and utterly terrifying. Their skin prickled, and the group began to snap out of their stupor, inching closer. But something was wrong. Shadows shifted around them more than just the flickers from their flashlights. Bodies drew closer, cold breaths mingling with the frigid air. Then, without warning, they turned to find themselves surrounded. Their once tight-knit group had splintered, some looking terrified, others transfixed by the swirling shadows. Eyeballs bulging, hearts racing, they realized that what had been a search became a fight to understand their very survival. "Stay together!" Someone yelled, a last-ditch effort to hold them all together against the encroaching gloom. But the question loomed larger than any fear: how do you hold on to something that's already slipping into the darkness? What awaited them in the heart of the woods, where no light crept? The air felt electric with unspoken answers. Each person's breath mingled, echoing like footsteps against the rocks. And just then, within the gathering darkness, a chilling voice sang out, resonating deep within their souls, "Welcome home." What awaited them next would change everything they thought they knew about the Appalachian mysteries. Would they be ready to embrace the truth? The woods were alive with an unsettling energy, a thick chill sinking deep into the bones of each person as they scanned their surroundings. They were shrouded by darkness, but their fear transformed the shadows into something monstrous, something hungry. The voice that had beckoned them felt like a thread pulling at the very fabric of their sanity. What was that?" Sarah stuttered, her flashlight flickering as if the light couldn't withstand the weight of the night. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. A knot tightened in her stomach. The air crackled, and her instincts screamed at her to run. "Just the wind," Jake forced out, though his eyes betrayed the truth. He shifted nervously, feeling the eyes of every shadow pressing in. "We need to get back to the diner." "No. We can't leave now." Mark, one of the more adventurous members, protested. "We came here to find out what's going on. We can't just turn back because we're scared." Mark's voice rang out, a challenge against the silence. With each word, he pulled the others back from the brink of panic, even as the shadows seemed to shift, watching their every move. But as soon as those words left his lips, the forest responded with a tangible hostility, a sudden rustling, branches cracking, and a rancid odor like decay wafting through the air. "Shut up, Mark!" someone hissed, fear swelling in their voices. Then, out of the night, an unearthly scream echoed, splitting the air, drenching them in a primal terror that laced each heartbeat with dread. It felt like the mountains themselves had cried out in warning. "Run!" Jake shouted, panic overtaking him. They turned as one, sprinting blindly into the black maw of the woods. Feet stumbled on roots and rocks, flashlights bobbing wildly as if they were alive, darting left and right. Breath came in gasps, mixing with the scent of wet earth and something more sinister lurking behind them. But how could they escape something that seemed to know every path, every secret hidden in these woods? Vines twisted and twined around their ankles, as if trying to snag them back, pulling at their resolve. "Stop! Over here!" Sarah yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos. She pointed to a narrow break in the trees, a hidden trail that seemed to offer a chance to escape. Without waiting for a response, she bolted down the path, adrenaline pumping through her veins. The others fell in line behind her, the oppressive shadows gathering, throbbing with unspeakable breath. Each step felt heavier, as if the very earth was trying to hold them down. Jake's heart hammered in his chest like it might burst. But then, just as they were beginning to believe they might escape, the darkness coalesced ahead. The coldness intensified, swirling into a nebulous shape that constricted their path. It manifested slowly, forming a figure with cold, hollow eyes filled with knowledge of things no human should ever understand. "Welcome home," it echoed again, the voice now layered with menace, intertwined with sorrow. The group halted, frozen in terror. One by one, they turned back towards the familiar voices of their companions and saw their fear mirrored, but it was too late. The shadows had them now. A piercing scream shattered the night. Was it Mark, Jake, Sarah? It didn't matter. From the sound, it felt like they were all trapped in the same nightmare. Then the shadows moved in, fracturing the air with energy, ready to pull them into the abyss. Desperation surged within Jake. He spotted what appeared to be a weathered old stone shaped like a heart beside the flickering remnants of the light. "The stone!" he shouted, the revelation striking him like lightning. But before he could finish, the abyss swallowed him whole. What lay ahead was uncertain, but in that instant, every soul in that forest breached the divide between nightmare and reality. Did they even want to uncover the truth that lay hidden, festering like an open wound beneath the surface? The wood's whispers turned ominous, an insistent chant echoed through the trees. "You are ours now." And as fear darkened their hearts, there remained but one trembling question: how would they confront the very essence of whatever evil lurked in the shadows, waiting to claim what they could not give? The forest hung heavy with silence, the air thick and stagnant as if every heartbeat was sucked into oblivion. The cold dimmed as Jake felt the ground shift beneath him, shattering any grip on reality. His veins pulsed like fire, and suddenly he could hear whispers intertwining with the rustle of leaves. It was a language he thought he could understand, or maybe he just wished he could. "Jake," a voice whispered, its tone dripping with a sweetness that sent shivers running down his spine. It sounded like Sarah. "Help me." He blinked wildly in the dark, trying to locate her. The shadows shifted, beckoning him closer with promises of hope and despair. Was she just a figment of his racing mind? The stone pulsed at his feet, the heart shape giving off a faint glow that seemed to tether him to sanity. "Sarah?" he called out, desperation clawing at his throat. The only answer was the rustle of darkness closing in. With a sudden surge of panic, he scrambled for the stone, digging his fingers into the damp earth around it. The moment he grasped it, the shadows screamed a collective, inhuman wail that rolled through the trees like thunder. A dazzling flash of light erupted from the stone, spilling out into the void, illuminating everything within sight. For a split second, Jake thought he saw the faces of Mark and Sarah caught in the glimmer, twisted in terror, but then darkness flooded back, thicker than before. The stone lay cold in his hand, the light fading. "No!" he shouted, but the abyss pressed in even tighter, gnashing teeth and claw-like tendrils reaching for him, hungry for warmth. He spun around, throwing his flashlight into the shadows, and there they were, his friends, still alive but eerily still. Their eyes were wide, faces pale, caught between this world and the nightmarish hold of the forest. He could see the fear etched into their features. "What is happening?" yelled Mark, breaking the silence, his voice trembling. Jake's heart nearly stopped when he saw the desperation in his eyes. "I think it wants us, it wants our fear." Jake's voice cracked as he realized they were dealing with something much darker than they had imagined. "We need to stick together." "Together?" Sarah shouted, glancing around frantically. "Look at us. This place is driving us apart." The trees creaked, and another scream echoed through the night, shrill and piercing. Jake felt its cold fingers wrap around him, intertwining with the dread coiling in his stomach, clenching tighter. "Keep holding on to the stone," he breathed. "If it has power, we have to use it." "Are you crazy?" Mark yelled, as shadows danced closer. "This thing is ancient. We can't control it." But Jake felt it surge through him, a primal calling he couldn't resist. With renewed determination, he raised the stone and shouted, "We reclaim our fear. You cannot take us." The hum of energy surged back through the clearing, swirling around them, counteracting the oppressive darkness. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of rage, shifting and pulsating, as if trying to retreat from the profound light. Then, out of the chaos, shapes began to form in the darkness. They were not just shadows, they were memories wrapped in darkness, echoes of pain and suffering, whispers of those who once tread upon these lands. They pulled at the edges of Jake's mind, threatening to reveal secrets long buried. "Don't listen. Focus on us," Sarah cried, stepping closer to Jake, anchoring them together, but fear sliced through the air, a tangible thing. "What's out this place?" Jake yelled, feeling the very ground ripple underfoot. A haunting chill surged through them. It was almost as if the darkness had a voice of its own, a siren call teasing them into the depths of despair. "Jake, behind you!" Sarah gasped. He turned and came face to face with endless eyes. Each one held a flicker of torment, a promise of chaos lurking beneath the soft surface. "What have we awakened?" Mark whispered, and Jake suddenly understood. They had stumbled upon the pulse of the darkest secrets of these woods, something waiting to rise. In that moment, a terrible realization dawned. They hadn't just stepped into darkness, they had become part of a far more intricate web than they could have ever imagined. A truth burned inside Jake, a flicker of hope meant to guide them through the chasm of despair. "Together," Jake urged, gripping the stone tighter. And just when it seemed all hope was lost, the forest moaned, alive with anticipation. The shadows writhed, clinging to every word. But what would happen next? Would they face the darkness or become part of it forever? The weight of the night pressed heavier, and the words echoed back, swirling with an ominous promise. This forest doesn't just hold secrets, it lives on them. And just like that, they realized the path ahead would not just reveal the past but would test their will to confront the essence of their own fears. Was their bond strong enough to overcome the shadows? The air crackled with tension, each breath a reminder of the shadows that encircled them. The whispers swelled, vibrant and malevolent. Jake felt the stone's pulse in his hand, a steady rhythm at odds with the chaos brewing around them. They were more than just echoes, they were fragments of lost souls, each one begging to tell its story, each one wanting them to listen. "Jake, what do we do?" Sarah's voice quivered, breaking through the chorus of whispers. Her eyes were wide with terror, darting towards the lurking shadows. Jake could feel the weight of her fear, almost tasting it like bile in the back of his throat. "We stand our ground. We face it." His words felt hollow, but he held the stone higher, its soft glow illuminating the dread etched on their faces. "We're stronger together." A low growl rippled through the air, vibrating with the memories that hung heavy, ready to consume. The eyes continued to watch, glistening in the dark, feeding off every ounce of fear radiating from them. "It knows us, it knows our fears," Mark said, his gaze locked on the encroaching darkness. "We mustn't let it in. Then we have to fight back." Jake shouted, eyes steady, the pulse of the stone throbbing in tune with his heartbeat. "Remember why we came here. Remember hope." But as he spoke, the shadows writhed closer, seeping into the crevices of their minds, pressing against their sanity. Memories flooded back, fragments of heartache, sights of loss. Flashes of their past twisted horror, creasing their faces with doubt. "Jake!" Sarah's voice trembled again, a frantic whisper laced with panic. "What if this is all a trap? What if we're meant to relive it? The rustling intensified, drowning her words with a deafening cacophony of voices. Jake couldn't shut them out. The shadows beckoned, revealing moments of betrayal, pain, and regret. Visions spun before his eyes: a childhood friend lost, the weight of unfinished conversations, the hurt of secrets unspoken. Every moment whispered their vulnerabilities, gnawing at their resolve. No. We're not alone. Jake cried out again, desperation thick in the air. He remembered the bond they shared, the laughter, the adventures, and the dreams. Feel this. He pressed the stone against his chest, anchoring them together. In response, a beam of light burst forth, piercing the shadows, forcing the darkness to recoil. The steady pulse harmonized with their collective determination, weaving a barrier against the encroaching gloom. For a fleeting moment, clarity surged, that flicker of hope rekindled, but just as quickly, the shadows surged back, crashing against their makeshift shield. It was an onslaught, the voices blending into a single entity, each syllable heavy with despair. You will never escape. No. Jake shouted, fighting against the pull that threatened to drag him under. We'll forge our path, even if you stand in our way. With every ounce of strength, he pushed against the darkness, the stone blazing with brilliance. The glimmer danced across the trees, illuminating faces lost in anguish, caught in a richer tale than he'd ever known. Did they belong to the ancient spirits of the forest, trapped forever in the cycle of pain? Look! Sarah screamed, pointing toward a swirling vortex that had appeared amid the darkness, its edges pulsating with energy. It's a portal. A way out. Jake's heart raced. This was their chance. The shadows writhed in agitation as the portal beckoned them, glimmering with possibilities. Yet, fear clawed at them. What lay beyond? Would escape mean leaving behind the bonds they had forged? Do we go? Mark asked, trepidation heavy in his voice. This could be our only chance. Before Jake could answer, the shadows lashed out, desperate to keep them anchored in their grip. They had to decide, and they had to decide fast. As Jake felt the familiar sting of fear creeping back, he realized this was only the beginning. Together? He questioned, looking between them. Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes, determination lingering there, despite the onslaught. Mark breathed deeply, squeezing Jake's shoulder with fleeting hope. And as the decision hung in the air, illuminating their resolve with the stone's light, a final shout of rage erupted, a chilling promise that resonated deep within: you will learn darkness is not something you can outrun. But the question pulsated in their minds: would they dare to plunge into the unknown? Would they face what lay beyond, or would they succumb to the forest's siren call? As the shadows writhed one last time, the portal flickered, teetering on the edge of possibility. What awaited them beyond that veil of darkness? The answer lay just out of reach, taunting them with a single, piercing whisper that echoed into the night: choose wisely, for every secret demands a sacrifice. The shadows seemed to pause, holding their breath as the portal flickered again, casting eerie reflections of the trio's fearful faces. The whispers echoed louder, shrieking with renewed vigor, clawing at their resolve. Jake felt as if the wind itself was carrying tales of dread, swirling around them like a storm. Jake! Sarah's voice broke through his daze. We can't just stay here. They want us to hesitate. It's what they thrive on. She stumbled forward, the glimmer of the portal pulling her in like a moth to a flame. Jake's heart pounded, and the tug of the shadows intensified, dragging at his limbs, anchoring him to the haunting memories that their presence invoked. Stay with me. He yelled, grabbing her wrist just in time, feeling the cold sweat on her skin. I'm scared, she sobbed, her voice barely above a whisper. What if we step through and it's worse? What if there's no way back? Then we make something better. We can't let this darkness win. He looked at Mark, who was both scared and determined, standing firm against the tide of despair that threatened to pull them apart. Jake! Mark shouted, tension palpable. What about our families? What if we lose everything, everyone? The air felt electric with their doubts, each question hanging heavy in the thickening fog. The shadows gurgled as if they delighted in their fears, twisting the very essence of their pasts into grotesque images. Jake fought against it, clenching the stone tighter, its glow pulsing in rhythm with his racing heart. Think of the lives we could change, the secrets we could uncover. Jake pleaded, desperation giving his voice an edge. We've spent too long running from our past. We can confront it and emerge stronger. As the portal shimmered, a hush fell over the darkness, as if the very shadows were weighing their decision. Could they go deeper into the unknown? Would they emerge as victors, or would the weight of regret crush them? With trembling hands, Jake peered into the swirling vortex. He could almost hear the distant laughter of friends long gone, the warmth of summer nights by the bonfire with promises of forever. Would they forsake those moments for fear? Together. Sarah cried out, a spark igniting in her eyes despite the fear. Together, we can face anything. Mark joined in, yes. Together. It was the answer. The flicker of hope ignited a fire within them, pushing against the shadows that loomed like predatory beasts. Jake took a deep breath, holding the stone tightly, the glow illuminating their determination. They stepped toward the portal, hearts pounding in unison. The darkness lashed out again, a final desperate attempt to claim them. The cold tendrils reached, pulling at their clothes and flesh, attempting to draw them back into the depths of despair. Jake cried out, now. We go now. With one swift motion, they lunged into the portal simultaneously, colliding with a rush of energy that swept over them like a tidal wave. The world blurred around them, a cacophony of snarling shadows and flashing memories, weightlessness enveloping them until they landed hard. The ground beneath them felt solid but ominously silent. Jake gasped for air as he pushed himself to his feet, a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. Where are we? Sarah's voice quaked, the fear seeping back as they surveyed their surroundings. The air was different here, still, thick, and heavy with an unnatural silence. The forest loomed around them, yet everything felt oddly misplaced, as if their surroundings were a twisted reflection of the world they had just escaped. Trees with gnarled branches reached toward the sky like accusing fingers. I don't like this, Mark whispered, looking over his shoulder as if expecting the shadows to chase them through the portal. Suddenly, a howl split the silence, echoing like a funeral cry, deep and mournful. The sound chilled them to the bone. Did you hear that? Jake breathed, dread curling in his gut. It came from over there. Before they could process what they had just encountered, distant figures emerged from the thick mist. Shapes twisted and hovered, features distorted by the veil that separated realms. They were watching, waiting. Do you think they are? Sarah trailed off, the fear painting her face pale. As if answering her unspoken question, the shadowy figures shifted closer, the air thickening with unfamiliar energy. Jake's pulse quickened. We have to find out what they want and why we're here. The figures beckoned them forward, inviting yet foreboding. A sense of urgency swept through Jake, they needed answers and fast. But as they took their first step toward the unknown, he felt a stitch of doubt weave through him. What if this was the true trap? What if beyond this moment, every horror they'd ever faced was nothing compared to what lay ahead? Are we ready for this? Mark asked, uncertainty flooding his voice. Jake met their worried gazes. The portal behind them flickered ominously, each pulse of light drawing them back, although retreat now felt like losing everything. What have we done? He thought as the figures drew closer, their whispered secrets promising revelations that could either save or doom them. The air thrummed with tension, anticipation thick enough to slice through. What awaited them in this haunting expanse? What terrifying truths would emerge from the shadows as they dared to unveil the knowledge buried deep within this cursed landscape? With each careful step forward, Jake steeled himself, readying for the confrontation that loomed just beyond the reach of light. He clenched the stone, feeling its warmth as a reminder of their bond and the perilous path they had chosen. In a place where the line between salvation and destruction blurred, the ultimate question resounded through the darkness: would they find freedom, or had they walked right into the jaws of an even darker fate? The shadows shivered as Jake, Sarah, and Mark stepped forward, their trepidation a tangible weight. The figures loomed closer, swirling in patterns that felt both mesmerizing and disturbing. Jake could feel every heartbeat pulsing through the ground, each one drumming a raw invitation that tugged at their curiosity, yet doused in dread. "What do you want from us?" Jake shouted, his voice trembling in the heavy air. A knot of fear twisted in his stomach. The figures paused, their forms rippling as if considering their response. "Do they understand us?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide, darting to each shifting shadow. The lead figure, taller than the rest, stepped forward. Its face remained obscured, but Jake swore he felt its gaze probing his very essence, reading his fears. "We seek knowledge," the figure rasped, its voice a chorus of whispers that licked at their ears. "Knowledge lost, buried beneath the weight of time." Mark's brow furrowed, a flash of defiance igniting in his eyes. "What kind of knowledge? And what does it have to do with us?" "Each of you carries a piece," the figure beckoned, extending a hand as if inviting them to come closer. "Fragments of truths that could alter your past and rewrite your future." Jake's heart raced. The tantalizing promise of revelation danced on the edge of his mind. Could they truly uncover the answers that had haunted them in their previous lives? But the very thought of it sent a shiver down his spine. With every twist and turn, every moment in this strange realm felt like an invitation to their own undoing. "Rewriting our future?" Sarah's voice was a mix of hope and anxiety, her spirit wavering. "What if it's worse than we think? What if these shadows are lying?" Jake shot her a look, a silent plea not to give in to fear, even though his own doubts clawed at him. "Are we really willing to gamble everything on a promise from beings we don't understand?" Mark added, the tension in his voice palpable. "What if they lead us into a trap? We could find our families understand what has become of them," Jake said, desperation creeping into his tone. The thought of reconnecting, of closing the wounds that had festered far too long, was intoxicating. But as if sensing their growing resolve, the figures shifted uneasily, their whispers rising like spectral winds. "The truth is not without consequence," the lead figure warned. "Sometimes unveiling the past means facing the anguish it brings." The warning hung heavy, echoing like a distant thunder. Jake's stomach twisted. Did they really want to unearth old secrets? What if the memories they dragged up were better left buried? "Trust us," the figure murmured. "Only by confronting the darkness can you find your way back to the light." The echoes of its words wrapped around them, binding their hopes and fears into a shared pulse of confusion. What lay in that darkness? A future they could mold with their hands, or the ruin of everything they had ever cherished? Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, sweeping like a tempest. The figures danced around them, revealing glimpses of past events, familiar faces twisted in anguish, laughter that devolved into screams. The vision struck with the weight of clarity, beckoning Jake, Sarah, and Mark to remember who they were before everything changed. "No!" Sarah cried, shielding her eyes. "We can't take this anymore." But it was too late. The figures pulled them deeper into the void, memories swirling around them, each moment more agonizing than the last. Jake gripped the stone tightly, its warm glow feeling like the fading heartbeat of hope. In that moment, he saw the gateway shatter open, a chance to pull them into another world of their making. "Together!" he shouted again, desperation rising. "We face this together." Yet as he reached for Sarah and Mark, the ground beneath them trembled. The shadows recoiled, and the haunting cries grew louder. "What if we lose each other?" Mark shouted, the fear evident in his eyes. Jake paused, the weight of that question resonating. They were too far gone now, yet a flicker of truth ignited within him. "We won," he declared, clenching his fists in defiance against the darkness. As they plunged deeper into the unknown, spiraling between forgotten memories and fractured dreams, Jake felt the air shift around them. A twist of fate lurked, ready to unveil the ultimate truth or shatter them entirely. could they confront the darkness without losing themselves forever? Would they brave the chilling secrets lodged deep in the heart of the shadows, or find themselves swallowed by the very fears they sought to escape? With every heartbeat, a haunting question echoed: would they be heroes of their own story, or victims of the shadows that taunted them? The world around them dissolved further, colors bleeding into one another as the shadows tightened their grip. Jake felt his heart hammering against his ribs, raw terror creeping through him. His fingers dug into the stone, a desperate anchor in the chaos. "Keep your eyes open," he called out, a surge of adrenaline powering his words. "We can't lose focus." But focus seemed an incredible feat in a realm where the line between memory and nightmare blurred. The shadows enveloped them, pulsating with energy as they summoned visions, images of sorrow and loss that felt too real to dismiss. Jake fought against a tidal wave of memories pulling him under, yet he couldn't help but glance at the chaos streaming before them. Sarah choked back a sob, her knuckles white from gripping the edge of the glowing stone. "Jake, I can't. These are our worst moments." "Then face them," Jake shouted back, determination cutting through the desolation. "Face them with us." Mark stood resolute, though his jaw was clenched tight. "We can't change what happened, but we can shape what happens next." Strengthened by their shared resolve, they forged ahead. Every twist of the shadows seemed to amplify their inner fears, but Jake could also feel a spark of something: hope. Perhaps even strength. As distorted faces flickered in and out of view, he steadied his breath and focused on the present, ready to confront whatever darkness lay ahead. Suddenly, the lead figure glided closer, its presence demanding attention. "Choose wisely," it intoned, its voice echoing like a warning in the night. "What truth do you seek?" "Why us?" Sarah answered, her voice quaking but firm. "We're just people trying to find our way." "True," the figure replied, "but sometimes the path to understanding travels through the shadows of what we wish to forget." Jake glanced at his friends, feeling a pang of doubt. What if we're not strong enough? What if the truth breaks us? The shadows ebbed and flowed, threatening to reclaim their minds with dark echoes of voices they longed to forget. And just like that, the memories surged: Jake's childhood home ablaze, and his mother's anguished cries mixed with the crackle of fire. Sarah's laughter, fading into the distance as she turned to walk away from her past. Mark's desperate search for his sister, ending in silence. "Look!" Mark shouted, pointing as a new vision emerged: a shimmering doorway, glowing dimly yet unmistakably vibrant. "That's it. That's our way out." Glimmers of hope sparked within Jake, but uncertainty gnawed at him. What if it leads to more pain? What if it leads to answers? Mark countered fiercely, the weight of his sister's loss pressing on him like an unseen hand. "We can't hide forever." Without further hesitation, they surged toward the door, feeling the shadows tighten their grip, pushing them back. The cacophony of their past screamed for attention, but they resisted it, hand in hand, hearts racing as they barreled forward. The threshold loomed closer, the warm glow wrapping around them like an embrace. They held on like lifelines, afraid yet exhilarated, knowing they had to dive into the unknown. Together, they shouted in unison, a declaration of bravery against the encroaching darkness. They broke through the shimmering barrier, emerging with ragged breaths on the other side. Yet what lay before them turned their collective exhilaration into a shattering shock. The endless expanse stretched out, revealing not salvation but a haunting landscape mirroring their deepest fears: homes in ruins, familiar faces twisted in despair, and shadows dancing in the distance. The dark figures lingered, waiting, watching. "What have we done?" Sarah murmured, her voice barely a whisper as they stood at the cusp of this new terror. Jake felt the icy fingers of dread curl around his spine. Maybe this is just the beginning. As if on cue, the lead figure materialized in front of them once again, a smirk creeping across its shadowy visage. "This is only the first step, heroes. The true test is yet to come." Jake, Sarah, and Mark exchanged looks of uncertainty, each one wrestling with the reality of what lay ahead. Would they confront their worst fears here? Would they emerge stronger or unravel completely? With their connection strained and the stakes higher than ever, the next chapter of their fate was about to unfold. But were they prepared for the truth hiding in the shadows? The air felt thick, pressing down on them like a weight. Shadows loomed larger, flickering uneasily as they shifted, darting in and out of view. Jake's heart raced, each thud echoing in his ears like a warning bell. The landscape warped around them, twisting familiar streets into tangled alleys of dread. "Look!" Mark gasped, eyes wide with shock. "It's my neighborhood." Before them stood the remnants of what had once been a picturesque street, now cloaked in a dilapidated veil. Doors hung ajar, cracked windows revealed darkened interiors, and silence thickened the air like a fog. Each step they took deeper into the wen was laced with trepidation. It was all terrifyingly real. "Why does everything look so familiar?" Sarah whispered, her voice quaking. "It's our past," Jake replied, his throat tight. "It wants us to drown in it." Indeed, the scene pulsated with latent energy, drawing from their shared nightmares. Jake saw his childhood home on the left, fire-scorched and consumed by shadow. The memories clawed at the edges of his mind, nightmarish stills painting wretched images. He could almost hear his mother's screams as they echoed in his thoughts. "Stay together!" Mark shouted, holding his ground, though every fiber of his being wanted to flee. "We need to face this." "So what?" "Face what?" Sarah exclaimed, her voice shaking. "Face the pain? The grief? Or do we just circle around in this hell?" "Maybe it's both," Jake replied, steeling himself. "But we can't let it break us." A chill swept through the air, whispering threats, a disembodied voice taunting them. "Does the truth hurt too much? Can you bear it?" A sudden flicker of light drew their attention to a gathering of shadows at the distance, figures emerging from the darkness like memories long buried. Jake's stomach churned, the faces morphed into their long-lost loved ones, twisted in anguish, reaching out with gnarled fingers, almost pleading. "Mom!" Jake shouted, the pain slicing through him like a knife. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing you can't give," the lead figure replied, stripping away Jake's resolve like peeling paint. "Just your secrets, your guilt." "Secrets? I don't have any," he insisted, even as he felt the shadows grip tighter, their mere presence an accusation. "Then why do you carry their weight?" The shadow hissed, drawing nearer. "Why do you stand paralyzed in their presence?" Jake glanced at his friends, their faces mirroring fear and confusion. "We can't get lost in this," he shouted. "We stand together." As if summoned by his desperation, the wind howled through the remnants of their world, causing the shadows to retreat momentarily. But just as quickly, the darkness rushed back, now swirling violently around them, suffocating hope. "Quit fighting them!" Sarah yelled, and her voice cracked with unbearable pressure. "We must confront our pasts." "Together," Mark called, the strength in his voice ringing with determination. "No more running." They held on to each other, hearts pounding in rhythm, focusing past the chaos. In that moment, together they let their pain rise to the surface, a cacophony of grief, rage, and sorrow spilling into the open. "What will you do now?" the lead shadow asked, its voice gravelly with distortion. "Will you uncover the truths and shatter the shadows? Or will you remain trapped in their grip, screaming silently forever?" As the shadows surged forward, closing in around them, Jake felt an ember of courage ignite within him. It was now or never. Would they embrace their pain, or would they be swallowed whole by the shadows? The dark figures lurched toward them, and in that heartbeat of indecision, Jake whispered, "Let us see what we've been hiding." Would exposing their deepest fears free them, or would it seal their fate in eternal darkness? Just then, the shadows lunged, and a blinding light erupted from within their hands, illuminating the oppressive gloom. Would it be enough to cut through the darkness that lay ahead? The shadows collided with the light, an explosion of energy reverberating through the haunting landscape. The darkness hissed, recoiling as the radiant glow pulsed with their combined strength. Jake, Sarah, and Mark clutched each other tighter, their fears momentarily drowned by the surge of bravery surging through them. Together, they exclaimed in unison, their voices echoing with newfound determination. The ancient stone pulsed in Jake's grip, illuminating the shattered faces around them. Memories twisted and writhed like shadows relinquishing their hold, struggling under the force of their unified resolve. "Face it," Jake urged, forcing his voice steady. "Face the very truth we feared the most." The lead figure loomed closer, eyes narrowing with rage and surprise, its distorted voice rising above the cacophony. "You can't withstand the truth. Pain binds you." "You're wrong," Mark retorted, the defiance kindling in his chest. "Our pain doesn't define us. We choose to break free." He looked to Jake and Sarah, each of them stepping forward with renewed certainty, cementing their bond. As they confronted the shadow's taunts, the swirling memories erupted, revealing moments of levity and light. Laughter echoed through the air, memories of friends at summer bonfires, family dinners, moments of hope and love. A warmth flowed through them, pushing back against the despair that once haunted their thoughts. With every step deeper into this realm, they could feel the shadows ripple, struggling against their radiant resolve. The lead figure screeched, desperation creeping into its voice. "You don't know what you'll unleash." "Neither do you," Jake shot back, feeling the pulsing warmth of the stone resonate with deep purpose. "We're taking back our lives. We'll forge our own path." As if answering their commitment, the stone erupted with blinding light, drawing the memories around it closer. "We will remember," Sarah called out, her voice unwavering as she raised her hands to the swirling tendrils of darkness. "We will embrace every part of our past, even the pain." Together, they shouted again, the word wrapping around them as tightly as their hands. Light spilled forth from their connection, illuminating each twisted memory, each haunted face, granting them the power to reclaim what once held them captive. Suddenly, the shadows swirled violently, the dark figures shrieking in furious agony as relationships came into focus. Their friends and families looked back at them. They weren't just faces lost to time, they were bonds of love and hope that would not disintegrate in darkness. The lead figure trembled, its form shifting and flickering, as if no longer certain of its shape. "You cannot escape the past," it wailed, but its words were losing power, the shadows retreating, flickering like dying embers. "No. We're done hiding," Mark shouted, shaking with conviction, his heart beating in sync with their collective courage. "We can't be held hostage by fears anymore." Emboldened by their declarations, the light burst forth, cleansing the landscape, purging the darkness that lingered in the corners of their minds. Color returned, the vibrant greens of trees, the deep blues of the sky, as if joy had drawn back the veil of despair. Then, with a final blinding flash, the darkness shattered like glass, scattering into nothingness. Silence enveloped them, the echoes of their pain dissolving, leaving a stillness that felt both foreign and inviting. Jake blinked, tasting the fresh air, and looked around. They stood among ancient trees that glowed gently, vibrant with life. "Did we win?" he whispered. "We did." Sarah breathed in relief, her eyes shining bright with tears of joy. "We faced it, and it's gone." Mark grinned through the remnants of lingering anxiety. "But we still carry our stories. It's who we are now." As they stood there, hearts still pounding, the sound of distant laughter greeted them. They weren't alone anymore. Their burdens, their pasts, had reshaped them into something beautifully resilient, and as dawn broke across the landscape, spilling warmth and light into their souls, the mountains seemed to wrap around them like a protective embrace. They were free now, free to create memories anew. With a wave of emotion, Jake turned to his friends. "No more running," he said firmly. "To the future, and everything we will become." Sarah and Mark all smiled, stepping forward together into the burst of dawn. The air was fresh, holding the scent of possibility as they set forth, carrying their truths but unburdened by the shadows. Their laughter rang out, rippling across the land, echoing against the mountain's peaks. They were stronger than the darkness. Stronger than their fears, coming together had awakened them, and now they would always have one another, as they ran toward the light, never looking back. Make sure to share this conclusion and keep these stories alive. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you won't miss more thrilling content coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm with support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic ending. Wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to know this final chapter. True fans know how important your support is.